The morning sun rose gently over Lagos Island, casting a golden glow on the bustling streets. Chioma adjusted her modest dress as she arranged clothes in the glass display of the fashion boutique where she worked. The boutique wasn't grand, but it was her pride. She had a natural eye for colors and style, and her dream was to one day own her own brand. Outside, the chaos of Lagos traffic filled the air, hawkers shouting, buses honking, and people rushing to their destinations. Amid all this, Chioma kept her focus. Life was not easy. Her mother's small food stall at home barely covered rent. But Chioma's quiet determination kept her going. Across town, in Victoria Island, another life played out. Toby leaned lazily on the balcony of his father's high-rise apartment. He wore designer clothes, had a sleek sports car parked below, and everything money could buy. Yet his eyes carried a tired emptiness. The endless parties, the fake smiles of friends, and the expectations of his wealthy family weighed on him. Toby and Chioma lived in the same city but in two very different worlds, unaware that destiny was slowly drawing their paths together. The afternoon sun burned hot as Chioma closed up the boutique for her lunch break. She carried a small food flask her mother had packed, ready to sit quietly by the roadside and eat. Just as she stepped out, she noticed a sleek black SUV pulled to the side of the road. The driver's door was open. A young man stood beside it, looking frustrated as smoke rose lightly from the engine. It was Toby. He looked out of place, his crisp white shirt already damp with sweat. Several mechanics passed by, but he waved them off impatiently. Chioma paused for a moment, hesitant, then stepped closer. "Excuse me, are you having trouble?" she asked softly. Toby turned, surprised by her calm voice. "Yeah, the car just stopped. I don't even know what's wrong. And of course, my driver isn't picking up his calls." Chioma gave a small smile. "There's a mechanic's workshop just down the street. I can show you the way." Relieved, Toby agreed. They walked together, weaving through the busy Lagos streets. Toby found himself studying Chioma as she spoke. Her confidence, her simple dress, and the way people greeted her warmly. She seemed grounded in a way he hadn't felt in a long time. By the time a mechanic came to fix the car, Toby wasn't thinking about the engine anymore. He was thinking about the girl who had appeared out of nowhere to help him, a stranger who felt strangely familiar. Chioma, on the other hand, brushed it off as just another act of kindness. She didn't know that this brief encounter would open the door to a story much bigger than either of them imagined. The next morning, Chioma was busy folding new arrivals at the boutique when the glass door swung open. She looked up, and there he was, Toby, dressed casually in jeans and a polo shirt, pretending to examine a row of shirts. Their eyes met, and Chioma couldn't hide her surprise. "You again?" she asked, half smiling. "What? Can't a man buy clothes?" Toby replied with a playful grin. He didn't buy anything that day, but he lingered, asking about fabrics, colors, and styles. It was clear he wasn't there for the clothes. Over the next week, he kept coming back, always finding a reason to strike up conversations. Soon, those short talks turned into evening phone calls. Toby discovered Chioma's wit, her deep thoughts about life, and her dreams of becoming a fashion designer. She was nothing like the shallow company he was used to. One evening, as they stood outside the boutique while the streets glowed with Lagos traffic lights, Toby confessed quietly, "Talking to you feels different. Like I can breathe." Chioma smiled, but looked away. She liked him too, but in the back of her mind, she feared what people would say. Still, the bond between them grew stronger, threading their two worlds closer with every conversation. But not everyone was happy. At a private lounge in Victoria Island, Toby's friends raised their glasses, laughing. One of them leaned in, whispering, "So we hear you're hanging around some boutique girl now." Toby, a beg, leave street girls for drivers. "You're better than that." Toby's smile faded, but he didn't respond. Meanwhile, at the boutique, Chioma wasn't spared either. Her coworker, Amara, shook her head as she watched Toby drop by again. "Chioma, shine your eyes. Boys like him don't marry girls like us. They just play and move on. Don't let him waste your time." The words stung. That night, Chioma sat awake on her small bed, torn between the warmth she felt when Toby was around and the fear of becoming a cautionary tale. Toby, too, lay awake in his luxury apartment, thinking about her. For the first time, he wondered if love was worth fighting for, even if the world around them didn't believe it could last. It was a Saturday night in Ikoyi, and Toby decided to take Chioma out for a special dinner. He wanted her to see his world, the glittering lights, the fine dining, the kind of place he had grown up in. Chioma wore her best dress, a simple but neatly tailored Ankara gown she had saved for months to buy. She felt nervous as she stepped into the grand restaurant, with its glass chandeliers and well-dressed guests. Everyone seemed to stare as they walked to their table. Toby tried to make her comfortable, cracking small jokes, but the uneasiness lingered. Then trouble arrived. Just as Chioma lifted her fork, a tall lady in a red dress approached their table. It was Vanessa, Toby's ex-girlfriend, the daughter of a powerful business associate of Toby's father. She smirked at Chioma from head to toe. "So this is her?" Vanessa sneered. "The boutique girl who caught your attention? Toby, you must be joking." The words pierced through Chioma like a knife. The surrounding tables fell silent, eyes darting toward her. Embarrassed, she dropped her fork and stood up. "I don't belong here," she whispered, her voice breaking. Toby reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Tears stung her eyes as she hurried out of the restaurant. For the first time, she felt the full weight of the world reminding her she was different. Toby remained seated, his heart heavy, realizing love was about to cost him more than he imagined. That night, Chioma returned home with heavy steps. The humiliation at the restaurant still burned in her heart. She quietly entered their small apartment and found her mother, Ifeoma, stirring a pot of rice over a kerosene stove. Chioma dropped her bag and sat beside her mother, Ifeoma. For a moment, she stayed silent, then whispered, her voice trembling, "Mama, there's something I need to tell you. His name is Toby Williams. He's the man I've been seeing. He's kind, different from the others. But tonight, his world reminded me I don't belong there." Ifeoma froze, her hand pausing on the wooden spoon. She turned slowly to face her daughter, her eyes sharp with recognition. "Williams, you said?" Chioma nodded, confused. "Yes, Mama." "Why? Do you know him?" Ifeoma let out a long sigh, her shoulders heavy with old pain. "Chioma, listen carefully. Years ago, your father worked for Chief Williams, Toby's father. He was his driver, loyal and respectful. But one day, Chief Williams accused him of stealing money. Your father swore he was innocent, but no one believed him. He was disgraced, dismissed like a criminal. That shame broke him, Chioma. He never recovered. The sickness came, and before I knew it, he was gone." Chioma's eyes filled with tears. "You mean the man I've been seeing, his father destroyed ours?" Ifeoma nodded slowly, bitterness lining her voice. "That family never looked back at us. They never asked if we survived. And now, fate has brought his son into your life. Chioma, be careful. Love is sweet, but do not forget where we come from and what we suffered." Chioma's heart shattered as the truth sank in. The man who had brought light into her life was tied to the deepest darkness of her past. She leaned on her mother's shoulder, silently wondering if her love for Toby was already doomed. The next day, Chioma avoided Toby's calls. Her heart was torn, but after hearing the truth from her mother, she couldn't bring herself to face him. Each ring of her phone felt like a reminder of the painful history that now stood between them. Confused and restless, Toby drove straight to the boutique. He found Chioma at the counter, folding clothes. She looked up, their eyes locking briefly before she quickly turned away. "Chioma," he said softly, stepping closer. "Why are you avoiding me? Did I do something wrong?" She swallowed hard, her voice tight. "It's not you, Toby. It's your family." Toby froze. "My family?" Chioma shook her head, blinking back tears. "Ask your father what he did to mine. Ask him why my father died in shame because of him." Before Toby could respond, she turned and walked in the back room, leaving him standing there in shock. That evening, Toby confronted his father in their mansion. Chief Williams was seated in the study, a glass of brandy in his hand. "Father," Toby began firmly. Did you once have a driver named Emmanuel, Chioma's father? Chief Williams raised an eyebrow, then scoffed. Ah, that man. Yes, a thief who stole from me years ago. Why are you asking? Toby stood tall, his voice steady but laced with anger. I know his daughter. She told me you ruined his name, you shattered his family, and I think I'm in love with her. The words dropped like a stone in the room. Chief Williams slowly set his glass down with a sharp thud, his expression darkening. Have you lost your senses, Toby? Love with the daughter of a disgraced driver? Don't make a fool of yourself. That girl is beneath you. Our family name cannot be dragged into the mud. Toby's chest tightened, but he stood his ground. You're wrong. She's worth more than all the pride and money you cling to. And I won't let your arrogance destroy her the way it destroyed her father. For the first time, father and son stood on opposite sides, not just by distance but by principle. Toby turned and walked out, his heart heavy yet determined. He knew that choosing Chioma meant going against everything his family believed in, and maybe losing everything he had. The boutique was quiet that evening, the hum of Lagos traffic drifting faintly through the glass windows. Chioma stayed late, arranging clothes and trying to distract herself from the storm brewing in her heart. She didn't notice that just outside, in the dim glow of a streetlight, two young men leaned against a sleek car. One of them was Cunnel, Toby's cousin, arrogant, wealthy, and always mocking. Can you believe it? Cunnel laughed, lighting a cigarette. Toby's actually serious about that boutique girl. I give it 3 weeks. He'll get bored, and she'll be history. The other man chuckled. 3 weeks? You're too generous. I say she won't last past his father's next party. Girls like that don't belong in our circle. Inside the shop, Chioma froze. She had stepped out the back door to dump trash when she heard every word carried on the night breeze. Her heart dropped. She pressed herself against the wall, tears welling in her eyes as their cruel laughter echoed. Cunnel's voice came again, smug and careless. In fact, I'm willing to bet on it. Toby can play with her for a while, but in the end, he'll choose someone his father approves of. He has no choice. Family comes first. Chioma's hand shook as she clutched the trash bag. The world around her blurred. She had thought her struggle was only with Toby's father, but now it was clear. Even the people closest to him saw her as nothing more than a passing amusement. When the men finally drove off, Chioma returned inside, her face pale. She sat on a stool in the corner of the boutique, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. For the first time, she began to doubt everything. Toby's promises, his strength against his family, and whether love was strong enough to survive a world determined to tear it apart. A week later, the Williams mansion was alive with activity. Chief Williams had organized a grand business dinner, inviting influential partners and family friends. Among the guests was Vanessa, Toby's ex-girlfriend, dressed elegantly in a flowing gown. Her family had long-standing ties with the Williams empire, and Chief Williams made no secret of his plan. A marriage between Toby and Vanessa would secure a massive real estate deal. Toby sat stiffly at the long dining table, listening to the endless chatter about money, contracts, and family reputation. His father's voice boomed proudly as he introduced Vanessa to the guests. This is the kind of woman who belongs beside my son. Together, our families will build something greater. All eyes turned to Toby, expecting agreement. Vanessa smiled sweetly, resting her hand lightly on his arm. But Toby's heart wasn't in that room. His thoughts were with Chioma, her laugh, her strength, the pain in her eyes the last time they spoke. He couldn't pretend any longer. He stood abruptly, the scrape of his chair silencing the hall. "Father," he said firmly, his voice carrying across the room, "I will not marry Vanessa. I will not be part of this arrangement." Gasps filled the room. Chief Williams' face turned crimson. "What nonsense are you speaking in front of my guests?" he thundered. Toby's chest tightened, but his words were clear. "I don't care about wealth or deals. I love Chioma, and I won't trade her for business contracts or family pride." The silence that followed was suffocating. Vanessa's smile vanished, and whispers rippled through the crowd. Chief Williams slammed his fist on the table, his pride cut deep. "Then you're no son of mine. From this day, you will have nothing from me. No money, no inheritance, nothing. Toby looked at his father, pain in his eyes, but resolve in his heart. Then so be it. He walked out of the mansion that night, leaving behind his wealth, his privilege, and his family's approval, carrying only the weight of his choice, love over everything else. Toby left the mansion that night with nothing but his car keys and the clothes on his back. By morning, his father had already cut off his accounts, canceled his cards, and instructed everyone in the company not to assist him. The life of luxury he had always known vanished overnight. For the first time in his life, Toby understood what it meant to struggle. He sold his sleek SUV just to cover a few weeks of rent in a small, run-down apartment on the outskirts of Lagos. The tiled floors and chandeliers he grew up with were replaced by cracked walls, flickering bulbs, and a noisy neighborhood. Chioma found him there one evening, sitting on the edge of a thin mattress. His once-polished shoes sat by the door, now scuffed and worn. She looked around the small room, then back at him. "So this is where you've been hiding." Toby gave a weak smile. "I didn't want you to see me like this. Everything's gone, Chioma. My father made sure of it." Chioma stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. "You still have me. That's not nothing." She began visiting him after work, bringing food from her mother's kitchen. Together, they cooked, laughed, and shared dreams in that cramped little room. Toby, who once lived in excess, now learned the value of every naira, of boiling water for a simple meal, of waking up to the sound of children playing in the streets below. There were nights he felt defeated, questioning if he had made the right choice. But each time, Chioma's presence steadied him. She encouraged him to use his knowledge of real estate to start small, advising local landlords, helping with minor contracts. Slowly, Toby found himself rebuilding, not with his father's money, but with his own two hands. In those struggles, their bond deepened. For the first time, their love wasn't about stolen glances or grand promises. It was about sacrifice, survival, and the quiet strength of standing together. Toby realized that though he had lost the world he knew, he had found something far more valuable, a love that could withstand fire. Months passed, and Chioma poured herself into her dream. With Toby's encouragement, she began sketching designs late into the night, using scraps of fabric from the boutique to piece together her first collection. What started as small dresses for neighbors and friends slowly grew into something bigger. One day, her boss at the boutique noticed her sketches and encouraged her to showcase them at a local charity fashion show in Surulere. Nervous but determined, Chioma agreed. She invited Toby, who helped with the setup, carrying chairs and arranging lights like an ordinary assistant. A far cry from the man who once had staff at his beck and call. The evening of the show arrived. The small hall buzzed with people, local business owners, journalists, even city influencers. As the models stepped onto the runway, wearing Chioma's bold, creative designs, whispers of admiration filled the room. Her styles blended modern elegance with African vibrance, each outfit telling a story of resilience and pride. Backstage, Chioma trembled, watching the crowd's reaction. Toby slipped his arm around her shoulders. "Look at them," he whispered with a smile. "They finally see what I've always seen in you." To her surprise, a distinguished figure sat among the audience, Chief Williams. Though he had refused Toby countless times, curiosity had brought him there. He watched, arms folded, as each design drew applause. By the time the final model walked out, the hall erupted in cheers. After the show, reporters rushed to Chioma, praising her as a rising designer to watch. Chief Williams remained seated for a long moment, his face unreadable. Finally, he stood and walked toward her. "Your work," he said slowly, his deep voice carrying weight. "It is impressive. You have talent, girl." Chioma bowed her head respectfully, unsure how to respond. Toby stood by her side, his jaw tight, waiting for a fight. But instead, Chief Williams sighed heavily, as if the years had settled on his shoulders. "Perhaps I was wrong," he admitted quietly. "Perhaps worth is not measured by name or wealth, but by resilience." It wasn't a full apology, but it was the first crack in the wall that had stood between them. For Chioma, It was more than she ever expected. For Toby, it was proof that love and sacrifice could move even the hardest of hearts. The weeks after the fashion show changed everything. Orders began to pour in for Chioma's designs, and her name started to spread across Lagos. From social media blogs to lifestyle magazines, she was hailed as the new voice of Nigerian fashion. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just surviving, she was rising. Toby remained by her side through all, proud but humble. He had traded his old life of luxury for one of honesty, and in doing so, he had found a deeper purpose, standing with Chioma and building something real. One evening, Chief Williams sent for his son. Toby arrived at the mansion reluctantly, unsure what to expect. He found his father waiting in the lounge, no glass of brandy in hand this time, just a quiet seriousness in his eyes. "Toby," Chief Williams began, his voice lower than usual, "I have spent my life building walls around this family. Walls of pride, walls of wealth. But last night I saw that girl's work again on television, and I realized something." He paused, as if the words weighed heavily. "She has built something I could never buy, respect that comes from talent and perseverance." Toby held his breath, waiting. Chief Williams continued, "Bring her to me. Properly this time. Let me speak to her." When Chioma entered the Williams mansion days later, her heart pounded. She wore a modest but elegant dress of her own design. For a moment, she saw the same study where her father's name had once been dragged through the mud. But this time, she stood not as the daughter of a disgraced driver, but as a woman who had carved her own place in the world. Chief Williams looked at her long and hard before finally saying, "I wronged your family. I cannot change the past, but I will not stand in the way of the future. If you will have him, I give my blessing." Chioma's eyes welled with tears. Toby took her hand gently, his smile soft but proud. For the first time, the wall between them and his family crumbled. Months later, their engagement was celebrated not in the grandest of halls, but in a warm gathering filled with laughter, music, and both families united. Chioma's mother, Ifeoma, sat in the front row, her eyes glistening as she watched her daughter step into a future brighter than she had ever imagined. As the music swelled and Toby and Chioma exchanged a knowing glance, it was clear their love had gone beyond class, beyond pride, beyond the city walls that once divided them. It had become a love built on sacrifice, respect, and acceptance, a love that no barrier could destroy. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more touching stories that will inspire and move your heart.